Hi, I am here with Jeff Harris, pastor of Grace Point Church in San Antonio. Jeff, thank you for being with us today.
You bet. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and Jeff has just gone through the Resilient Transformation Academy program and had some phenomenal results. So I'd like to first start, Jeff, by tell us a little bit about where you were before you started working in this program and working with me. What was your life like?
Yeah, so I'm a pastor of a pretty decent sized church, but been there 25 years. I got 4 kids, so all that's complicated in and of itself. But I'd also struggle with bouts of depression over um, probably the last 10 years. But ultimately, where we got with me and Jody, my wife, toward the end of our empty nest, we've got one left. Um, I've just felt stuck. Um, Marriage was dysfunctional. I was angry about that. Um, didn't feel healthy emotionally because of the stress at home. Um, and then, that makes me feel like I'm a fraud when you're standing up on Sunday doing what I do for a living, telling people how to have this great life or how to get through difficulties. And I wasn't A, having a great life, or B, getting through difficulties well. So I just get this place like I've done talk therapy, I've done um, psychiatrist therapy. I mean, like treated for meds, been on depression meds for the last probably 8 years. Um, I've done those things, and they were not game changers. They helped me keep my nose above water most days, but never got me out of the water.
Yeah, so how was that affecting your life when all these things that you're talking about, really, how was that affecting your relationship with your kids? And what was the house like? Was it hard to be at home? Was there tension? Was there drama at home? Were you not sleeping? What was
Well, I doing what I do as a pastor, it's just like everybody else. Like I would come home and there would be the tension. There would be unresolved conflicts. There would be unnecessary conflict. There would then be the classic retreat to your vice, whether it be I'm going to have a couple of drinks before bedtime or I'm going to watch Netflix for hours on end or binge eat or whatever. Um, the same cycle that I watch people in, that I counsel people in, I found myself in. So it was not a fun place to go. It was a just the mood of it was friction. That was my daughter calling in.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, whoops. So yeah, that was the environment, and it had been
Yeah.
that way for a while.
And I think it's interesting too, because when we're feeling that tension or that drama or it felt dysfunctional, what we tend to do is veg out. We want to self-medicate by drinking or whatever your self-medication is of choice, and then binge watch Netflix. And it's just our way of saying, I'm going to just put it over there. And so it sounds like that was really costing you this great family life and costing you the feeling of freedom and the costing you like, God, I'm preaching about this, but I'm not really feeling it inside. So it sounded like there was a lot of internal conflict.
A ton, and that you know, I- not that my role or job is harder than anyone else's. Everyone's got their own thing, but in the dynamics in my world, where you're not able to authentically live and experience um, what it is that you actually believe, um, that just creates an internal struggle. And then, of course, I found myself uh, self-medicating the same way other people do, and in the same kind of tensions that are
Yeah.
normal to most of us, but didn't know how to get out of it.
So Jeff, you talk about that, and then you talk about, you desired to change. What was the motivation? Because you said you did talk therapy and you did some other things and medication. but they didn't really work as well. What was it that you just said, okay, this is it. This time I am going to change? What was the big motivation behind that?
Well, funny, I was talking with my friend Bill, who referenced me to you, and I listened, and I was like, okay. Well, then when you and I had that conversation, and you asked me a question, you said, look, if you don't do anything differently, where will you be in a year from now? And I I remember the words coming out of my mouth as I said them. They were shocking to me. I was like, I'll be dead or divorced a year from now if nothing changes. And so that, probably more than anything else, just talking with you and you asking me that question, those words coming out of my mouth were like, oh crap, like that's not that's not really a good place to be. And so, in spite of my cynicism about, oh yeah, okay, I'll listen to my friend Bill and give this person a hearing, that really doubled down and just said, dang, I got to do something. Why not?
Beautiful. And you showed up very committed, and having that motivation in the line of work that you do, being divorced isn't really a good thing, being pastor of a church.
Well,
So,
in my particular brand, it's not much of an option. So yeah, there's that.
right. And you really showed up decisive and resourceful and very committed and ready to make that change. And what I find is that when people are very decisive and committed and say, okay, this is it, I'm not going to go one more day feeling this again.
Yeah.
And that's where things, I think, really shifted for you, as you just said, no more. I'm not going to go one more day with feeling this depression and sadness and drama and vegging out anymore.
Yeah, and that was true. I was willing to give it a try because I like I said, I'd done all the other.
What did you try? You said talk therapy, and you had mentioned talk therapy and medications, and you're on mute right now. There you go.
Sorry,
That's okay.
I can't hear you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
My daughter called again, and so can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you great.
Okay, now I can hear you. I'm so sorry.
That's okay, no worries. So
You
you
probably
had,
don't have an editing tool.
that's okay. Hey, this is live, right? People get to see what
Right.
live is like, and this is life, and it's how we handle all the navigation of life and the interruptions and still remain completely coherent.
You bet.
So you were saying what you had tried before with little success, talk therapy, medications.
Yeah, they work. They just don't. They just sustain the status quo. And so for me, this um, I was a little skeptical at first, but what I found, you know, one the parasympathetic sympathetic. I'm not going to steal your thunder for someone to get into this, but that made so much sense to me from the physical metaphysical state. I mean, I'm a pastor. I understand that, but I didn't necessarily um, monitor that dynamic in my own life. I assented to it or thought about it, but then I was like, no, that makes the big difference, and that gives you the power um, over your own emotion, over your own physiology of how you feel, rather than giving it away to someone else through circumstance or being propped up by someone else through talk therapy or medication. So for me, all of a sudden I found myself going, oh, wow, this actually is making a huge difference in my heart, mind, and soul.
When you say a huge difference, can you give an example of what some of the immediate results were when you started to learn the difference of, oh, this is how stress feels in my body, and this is how it feels when I turn it off, and I have control over it?
Well, it's such a stark difference for me because, like, I told you this early on, I kind of lived with a low level growl since I was a kid. like just tenacious, and a little bit youngest child, so I'm a little bit scrappy, and just everything was a fight, right? And so being in the sympathetic state 100% of the time, that was normal.
And
Until
when you
always default there no matter what. But
and when you
then
say growl, you mean a little bit of an anger, a little bit of an
for sure.
anger.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and anger is the worst side of it, but like I would fight for someone, or I fight for a good cause. But yeah, it's definitely uh came with a fight.
You know, Jeff, I remember you were about, 3 weeks into doing the program, and you had said to me, wow, I actually got triggered and I felt the anger and I went back to it and it felt so horrible living in anger. And you had spent the last 3 weeks living in gratitude and happiness and a calm state. And then you said to me, oh my gosh, I used to live my entire life in this state of anger. And
Yeah.
it feels terrible because I've been out of it for 3 weeks. And you got the contrast in that moment of, oh my God, I'm a completely different person just in 3 weeks.
And that was a big moment for me because like I thought like, okay, I'm feeling some change in me. In about 2 weeks, I could tell that I was different, but in about 3 to 4 weeks, it's when other people started commenting, like, "What's going on?"
Yeah.
And that's where the proof is. Like, you can talk yourself into, um, non-measurable change, but other people, when they start seeing something different in you, then that's how you know, okay, look, what I perceive to be happening is actually happening. And yeah, so that was super powerful, and just the way I deal with conflict or circumstances or difficulties came from a different place.
It's so beautiful. I remember one of the things that you had shared with me is that you were going through a lot at work, a lot of changes, a lot of different things happening at work. And how would you have handled that in the past versus how you handle it after learning the techniques in this program?
Yeah, I mean, most of it would have been personal. This person did or did not. They've kind of it would have been a failed me, or um, and that would have led to kind of resentment or anger or frustration, or just negative, like, I can't believe that, or whatever. And so now it's, I'm looking through the lens of, one, compassion. Two, if someone messes up, or unless they overtly make it personal, it's not personal. And even if they do make it overtly personal, that's their thing that they've got to learn to deal with, that I'm here to happily help them deal with. But I'm not going to let it set the thermostat of my life. um, that's not theirs.
Beautiful, beautiful. And you were able to control how you felt in the moment to not let it pull you down later.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also remember one time you said, how come I don't want to drink the Cokes that I used to drink? Or I don't want to eat the way I used to drink or eat the way that I used to eat.
Yeah, I drink a lot less Coke Zero, although I'm not 100% on the wagon there. But no, it has begun. I'm about 12 pounds down. Just, I think probably cortisol levels. I think probably binge eating,
Yeah.
the mindless. Because, like you said, I think one of the first things that you said early on is when your attention is not focused, it's going to default back. And so I was like, gosh, that's so true. And so then I found myself, why would I do that? But then the cravings started to go away. Um, so a lot of those things are absolutely true. For me, it was on all levels, whether it was physiological, hunger, alcohol, TV, all of those things.
75% of overeating is emotional eating. 75%. So when
Yeah.
we go to the refrigerator, oftentimes we're feeding an emotion like worry or fear or anger.
Yeah.
being that you are so aware of your emotions and able to shift from anger to calm, or drama or worry to feeling confident or happy, that takes those cravings away. So
Yeah,
really great job on that.
it's
Amazing.
absolutely true for me. And then the other thing is, to me, it all made sense, because you were helping me understand the physiological side of that, the cortisol, and then, like, I think you said something about the hormone that suppresses cortisol is released from the heart, and all of that started making sense to me, um, in a different way. Like, it's not just psychobabble, it's not just breathing technique, it's a whole physiological it's all of it combined, and that rings true for me.
And what happens too when we talk about those emotions, and we talk about when you're in a depleting emotion like fear or worry or anger, it does release the cortisol into the body, and it activates the adrenal glands. When you are in control of those and you know how to turn those off, switch those off, it stops that cascade of hormones. So what happens is you begin to behave differently, you think differently.
Yeah,
And for many of us, they say up to 90% of primary care doctor visits are related to stress, but only 3% of people get help to reduce stress. What ends up happening is the doctors will say, here, take this depression med.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so it artificially creates these different hormones like DHEA in our brain. So I think the real big thing for you, Jeff, that you shared with me is at the beginning you were on depression meds for up to 8 years prior
Yeah,
to
yeah,
working together. And in 8 weeks, where are you with your depression meds?
yeah. So about, I guess, 4 weeks ago, maybe I stepped down off of my depression meds because I just felt like I didn't need them. Um, I'd tried it once before, and then life got really complicated, and so everyone was concerned for me, and so I got back on them, and just part of my life. But when I stair stepped off of them, one of the things I found, um, I had already the practice of, like, I have a really difficult day, if I have a really stressful event or whatever, instead of turning to my other things, I'm actually choosing a core performance or inner balance session. I don't different people call it different things. My kid calls it, "Hey, Dad, are you gonna be levitating?" I'm like, "No, it's not levitation, it's meditation." So I'll go home and do a session in the afternoon even because I'm turning to that because that's where my endorphins are released, and that's where, I'm feeling that sense of energy physiologically. Whereas before, I was relying on medicine to do what my body's capable of doing, um, but the medicine was doing it for me because my body had lost sense of how.
So do you feel more in control now of what's happening in your body and your physiology?
Yes, I mean, absolutely. No one else is in control of it. There are circumstances in life, but I can control how to respond to those circumstances. But
Yeah.
no one else is in control of making me feel a certain way, or tired is tired and circumstances are circumstances, but I can respond to that rather than run from it.
Beautiful.
And that's the difference. Yeah, I think that's the
Or
big difference.
react, or react, right?
Oh,
And
for sure. Yeah,
running is a reaction.
yeah. Fight, flight, right? It's run or
Yeah.
scrap. And I would do either really well. Um, but now I just, like, wait, no, I'm gonna replenish and top off here with get my energy levels back, get my focus back, and that has been a great resource tool.
So where are you with your depression meds now?
0. Yeah, no depression meds. I've been off of them for a stair step down off over a week, so I've been off cold turkey for 3 weeks,
Wow.
and I haven't really. I had one day where there was a headache and fatigue, which is kind of standard when you're coming off, especially at 8 years worth. But I have not noticed. And the big thing is nobody in my life has noticed some big precipice. My
Beautiful.
emotions are more fully front, which is a good thing. It wasn't a good thing before because I was just
Because they were depleting probably, and now
they
your
were
emotions
de-
are renewing
yeah,
it.
they were depleting emotions and I couldn't control them. I mean, now they're channeled and replenishing emotions. So yeah,
And that affects your family as well. It affects the
yeah,
people at work. It affects the people around you.
yeah.
And so,
It's funny you say that because like my wife says, I feel like I got my husband back, and my my biggest problem, the way I saw the world at the time was if I could just get her to behave differently and quit nagging or bitching or whatever. Um, but I was being so negative about her negativity that we were just in a vortex. And as soon as I stopped and just decided I'm not going to live there anymore, then she decided she didn't want to live there anymore either. You know, and so she views
amazing.
it as me changing, and I view it as the environment, being a catalytic change. So it's been really cool to watch.
It's amazing how many people come to me and say, well, my husband really needs to do this, or my wife really needs to do this.
Yeah, I definitely thought that for sure.
Right. And this is such a rich conversation because you've really demonstrated in sharing your testimonial that it really has nothing to do with the other person. It
It
has
doesn't.
everything to do about our perception of the other person. And
Yeah.
when we change, it gives that other person the inspiration to change as well. So
And you
really
could not
beautiful.
have convinced me otherwise. Like in talk therapy, you might have sent to that, but in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, no, no, you don't understand. You don't understand my particular situation. I would have said that 9 times out of 10. But watching the change in me change my world.
Wow. Really beautiful. So you got it on the physiological level. Like you literally changed. You know, I actually would like to share. Can I share your before and your after picture of your session? Would that be okay?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
This is really, really incredible.
Yeah, I think it's like 4 minutes and 59 seconds at point 0.6 coherence, and
Yes.
then 5 minutes at 100%.
So I'm going to go ahead and share the screen here. And what's interesting is, and when you see the screen, what's interesting about it is you're going to see where Jeff started and what the session looked like. So we use biofeedback to kind of get a snapshot of what's happening inside of the autonomic nervous system. So at the beginning of the program, with people not knowing what this is, just notice the edgy and jerky pattern. This was what was happening inside of Jeff's nervous system. Heart rate was up to 100 beats per minute on these sessions. So really high heart rate, which is indicative of anger, somebody living at a baseline of anger. And 8 weeks later, really what you're looking at is this nice, smooth, coherent pattern. Heart rate is between 70 and 80 beats per minute. And the big thing here is, I think the story of this, Jeff, is you are changed from the inside out. This is not a quick fix. This is sustainable. You literally have rewired your nervous system. So it's not like this is going to go away, right? This is the new you.
Yeah, and it's funny.
Oh,
I'll pull my inner balance out, and I'll show people when I'm talking to them about it. My first session and then that session you're talking about. And then what I always tell them is, look, when you're living in a sympathetic state, it's so hard to get out of, um, because that's all you know. But when you live in a parasympathetic state, it's also very hard to get out of because like when you leave, you're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to go there, And so it's actually really, uh, and you can't. It's like, you know describing someone who's never felt snow. I mean, they just can't conceive of what you're talking about until you experience it.
So what is your life like now, like on a day-to-day basis in comparison to what it was 8 weeks ago?
Yeah, well, so like my time in the parasympathetic or meditation is kind of a non-negotiable. Like that's how I start my day. Uh,
Must be your daughter calling again.
oh well, that's my daughter's ring, so she's trying to get a hold of me. But anyway, um, my day's different insofar as how I start it. Like I would normally start off with prayer and meditation, but not knowing necessarily. Like I call my inner balance my BS monitor, um, because you can start off your day in prayer and meditation and still be in a sympathetic state.
Yeah, and you found inner balance is what you've done. You have found your inner balance
So I'm
inside.
telling people that all the time. Like you can go home and watch a movie and think you're relaxing, but you're not. You're still in a sympathetic state.
Right.
And same thing is true with meditation. If I'm sitting there, my laundry list of problems to God, I'm ramped up, and this has helped me find the difference between when I'm truly surrendered, truly experiencing resilience and um, peace, harmony, whatever.
Beautiful. Well,
Yeah.
Jeff, you are such a pleasure to work with. Thank you for your dedication, your hard work, and just thank you for sharing
Well,
what you.
sorry about the interruptions on my phone. I couldn't control that, but thank you for letting me share. I'm used to giving testimonials, just not necessarily this kind. But I'm an evangelist by nature, and but I don't tell people about anything that's not absolutely true. And this is a game changer. So yeah, thank you for letting me participate and tell about it.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And if anybody, after watching this testimonial or this interview with Jeff Harris, if you're interested in learning more, I'm going to have you click the link below. You can schedule a breakthrough session with me. It's about 45 minutes to an hour. And we'll see if you are ready to go through the program and you're interested in it and you're a match, we'll give you an invitation into the program. So if you're interested in having that breakthrough call, please click the link below and you'll get directed to my calendar. We'll find a time and we'll get on a call together. All right, Jeff, thank you so much. Go call your daughter back. She's wanting to get a hold of you.
Thanks, Julie. I'm sorry about that.
No
I'll talk to
worries.
you soon.
Tell your daughter hi. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.